Hello and welcome. I am April Frazier, confidence coach and founder of Forward Confidence Coaching. I am here with Allison Grischow, and we are talking actor, and entrepreneur, and we are diving into what is her biggest challenge right now and what she'd like to create in the world, and especially as we approach the new year. Allison, welcome.
Thank you.
Uh, so tell me, I saw a few things. You have a money goal, you have a life goal. Tell me about what you're up to in the world.
Yeah. I am at a point in my life where I'm just really interested and ready to invest in a home of my own rather than renting an apartment, a home for my partner and I. And I've been saving for a down payment for it for a long time. Um, but there's a ways to go towards my goal. I still need $10,000 more set aside for that, in addition to what I've set aside so far. And um, yeah, it feels intimidating because I'm a good saver, but in my work as an actor and as an entrepreneur, I don't make a ton of money yearly. It's been like slowly inching up each year, but I think like last year I made 24,000 in the year. So I don't make a ton of money,
Okay.
generally speaking,
Right.
yet. But it's
Glad you
something
said that.
uh,
Yes.
it's something I've been working to grow on as I launched my business, The Joyful Actor, this past year, and have been taking on bigger acting projects as well that pay more. But yeah, that $10,000 definitely feels intimidating.
Okay. Okay, so buying a house, the money is to support buying the house for your partner and yourself. Got it. And then what would you say? I'm curious about the other pieces of it. Like you have this, it sounds like you have some career goals as well. Tell me about those in terms of your acting career.
Yeah. I feel like I'm at a time where I'm ready to move into some bigger work, some bigger opportunities. Um, I do voiceover for commercials and games and animation and that sort of thing. But yeah, I've done mostly commercial and now I'm moving into the animation gaming sphere, investing and learning more about that. So that's a career goal for me, in addition to expanding my work to television as well. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of work to hone those skills and take a lot of classes and really market myself. But I feel like I'm in a space where I I'm ready to go bigger, and go for those bigger opportunities. Um, so yeah,
Okay. And what made you want to get on a call today?
I think just wondering, like, what is it going to take for me to get to that new space? Wondering, is there anything in the way that's keeping me from expanding my income more? Is there anything in the way that's keeping me from these bigger opportunities? Yeah, I'm just curious to see what I can do because I'm a very action oriented person. And so I'm good at taking action, but I'm just curious, like, is there something I'm missing?
Okay. I'm
So,
happy that you said that you're action oriented. I find that I come in contact with very talented, multi talented um, professionals, and it's very easy to get focused on the external metrics of how things appear, of the success.
mhm.
So, are you willing to do an exercise with me?
Sure.
Okay, what I'm going to invite you to do, we're going to anchor a little bit and try and journey inwards to see if we can uncover just your question. What is it that could be standing in the way, if anything? So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And what I'd like you to do is I'm going to invite you to take 5 really deep breaths. And really deep breaths. I want you to count in or count on the inhale for 5 and hold at the top for 2 And then exhale for 7. As loudly as you dare. And really just breathe into this moment. Count to 5 on those. The world waits for Allison in this moment. And just really breathe in. Imagine you're taking all the oxygen out of the room and bringing it into your lungs and exhaling it out. And when you're finished, keep your eyes closed and say, okay. Did you say okay? I didn't hear that. Okay. All right. All right. So let's sit with this feeling for a moment. How does this feel?
A little bit heavy right now.
Okay.
A little bit, yeah, just like a little bit of weight on my chest.
Okay. Let's just notice it. No judgment. And I want to invite you to put one hand over your heart. And Allison, in this moment, ask your heart, what does it want most? There might be several things to come up.
Yeah, I think oh, do you want me to answer that?
If you have an answer, yeah.
When I felt the weight after taking the breaths, like the thing that came up was like what I want is to like take the pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want everything that I very much described already to you, those goals that I outlined, but like in this moment, like I want to like take that pressure of them, not like not wanting to get them, but the pressure of it, if that makes sense.
It does. And let's notice that your body, the feeling that you had in your chest, mirrored your
Mm-hmm.
truest desire,
Mm-hmm.
right? Does that feel true?
Yeah.
Okay. So, where does that pressure come from?
I think part of it is, I mean, it's coming from myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, and a desire to, I'm sorry, my dog's barking.
No worries.
I like muted it before, but I'm talking now, so I can't mute myself.
Totally fine.
But yeah, I recognize it definitely comes from myself and my like deep desire for these things, you know. Um, and also it comes from not wanting to go back to like the life I was leading pre-COVID. I mean, there are aspects of it I love and want to keep. I was pursuing acting still and all that, but I was commuting from gig to gig like almost for 3 hours a day just because I a freelancer. So that's just a huge chunk of time every day, 3 hours almost. I don't want to return to that. You know, now all of my teaching is virtual. And so, and auditions are virtual. So there is just more space in my life. Um, and so part of that like desire to reach these goals and this money goal for home as well comes from a place of like, I don't, I'm afraid of, I want to make enough money so that I don't have to go back to this lifestyle that wasn't working for me.
Okay. That makes sense. Um, so that would you is it fair to say there's the resistance for not wanting to go back is where the pressure comes from? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things. Yeah. And and maybe the other is just like my own ego of like wanting these things and to be able to say like I finally did it, you know. But I know from like most of the time when I like would get have in the past like gotten to the next level of something I really wanted, it usually did come when I finally like released it and was okay with where I was, you know? So yeah, does that make sense? Those two things?
So first, your truth does not have to make sense to me. Right?
Sorry.
I call that out because I honor it regardless, right? So, yes, it does, and that's okay, right? It does
For
it's
that
okay if it doesn't.
affirmational state.
Yeah. Um okay, so tell me about what you really do want to create. You've talked about some of the metrics. You talked about taking bigger acting parts, and you talked about $10,000 as your money goal and these things. But what feeling do you really want to experience when you've arrived, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, a big like my purpose, I feel, um, and I know is like to spread joy with my work. Um, and so what do I want to create? I want to create things that spread that joy for others, whether that's stories or in my teaching work. Um, and when I can feel it like right now, at least with like being able to live in this having more space without my commutes and whatnot now, I feel this a little more sense of like freedom um, and space in my life and creative freedom. And I want that moving forward as well.
So, creative freedom and joy, spreading joy. Mm,
And financial freedom too.
of course, yeah.
Kind of goes hand in hand with the creative freedom and the joy, honestly, because I feel that sense of freedom and space.
Mm.
I am so much more joyful and I'm able to make so much more and things that are more effective too.
Sure. Anytime we create from love, love is expansive and attractive, right? It attracts in and then it expands. Um, whereas fear contracts us. Okay, what stands in your way from creating this more joy?
Um, I think there's a belief that I have to like burn myself out to get there, or not even a belief that that's what's going to get me there, but a fear of that. Um,
So you fear that you'll have to burn yourself out to get where you want to be.
yeah, I mean, I don't actually like believe that that's true on a rational level because I know it's actually the opposite. Um, I'm sorry, I'm like getting lost here. um,
Fine.
but I'm afraid that I think sometimes I'm afraid that like if I go after things in a bigger way, now it's coming. If I go after things in a bigger way, there's more of a possibility of burnout. And I've experienced that in a really big way like years ago. Um, so that fear, I think, tends to come up for me of like, uh-oh, what if I like really, really, really go for these? I mean, I'm already feel like I'm going for them a lot, but I'm sure I also sense that there's like bigger things that I could be doing as well and more focus in it too. But yeah, I fear that what that plan will look like is a plan that burns me out. So
So that's interesting, because we are often afraid to fail, but we're sometimes afraid to succeed.
Mhm.
Is that true? Is there some fear that success will mean you have to be burnt out? Or,
I think so, like a little bit.
and it comes from a previous situation in your life?
Yeah,
How old were you when that experience?
it's a sophomore in college, so 20.
How did you know you were burnt out?
I ended up being hospitalized. I was pretty depressed and had a had a reaction to some medication that was prescribed to me that caused a adverse reaction. And
Gotcha. Okay. And what decision did you make after you healed and noticed that? What decision did you make as a result?
I decided that I would always, one, I had to say no to more things, and learn how to say yes to the things that I actually really wanted in my life, as opposed to what I thought like was going to make everybody else happy. And I also learned, or the decision that I made was to be more protective of my sleep and my time and my energy. But I sense that it's that protectivity that is like maybe blocking me now, and I'm confused as to how to like conserve, not well, I guess maybe how to conserve and protect my energy in a way that is also free and open and not blocking me.
Makes sense. Uh, it's almost like you have a protective system in place, the safety's on, and the safety keeps you safe. It also keeps you small.
I think so. Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really confused by it because I'm like, I don't want it to keep me small, but does being bigger have to be more energy, more time, less sleep? Is that the only thing that being bigger is? Or like, can it be both, you know? Like, can I expand? I don't know. Yeah.
Right. So I
Can
invite,
I expand and not burn out? I guess. Yeah.
yeah. So I invite you to change the question, um, from can it be both to how
Mm-hmm.
can I let it be both?
Mm-hmm.
What's the distinction for you in the change?
How means that it's available instead of like can it be is asking if it's even a possibility, and how is like how can it be a possibility, like how can this happen?
Yeah,
It's more it's a little less stuck, that's for sure, because it's like more solution oriented than just like, is this possible?
you got it right. Can I have both? Is yes or no.
Yeah.
Those are closed. The answer is final. Yes or no. How can I? Well, that allows you to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how? What do I need? How do I want to do? We can personalize your solution and craft it versus asking for permission.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So, how would you craft it? How would you create space for bigger and enough safety?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think um, it involves some boundaries, um, which I have had some, but like one that I think needs to change in my life is like a boundary around like working right before bed. Because I think, especially when my partner is not here, because my partner is gone right now, and is going back to law school for the next few months. And so when he's here, I'm very good about like, we're going to bed together. It's 10 o'clock. Great. Like, but when he's not here, it's like, well, I could just keep working and, but then that sets me up to like in a cycle where I'm sleeping in late the next morning and then I'm not as energized the next day. And like the vicious cycle continues. Um, so I do think that that's like a boundary I need to finally like set and honor for myself and know that I'm probably not going to get it right 100% of the time, especially because it's a big change. But and then allowing like another thing I've noticed my energy is a lot better when I like exercise in the morning. Um, so even if it's like 10 minutes, which is like nothing, but it makes a difference. So just really being clear about needing those things. And I've always valued my sleep a lot, but I've kind of let myself have that like freedom of just like, I'm going to do whatever I want before bed instead of like, I'm going to do things that allow me to calm down, Um, and I think part of it, like I'm an obliger in like the four tendencies. So there's a little bit of like obliger rebellion that tends to happen for me, especially in that like nighttime zone where it's like, this is my time now. And like, I'm going to do what I want, even if it's like a little bit destructive um, in terms of like staying up late and working. So it's like interesting to recognize that as something that I think will then give me more energy during the day to do that focused work, which I'm already doing some of, but I want to do more of, um, and then be able to put it aside. And I think another thing that has to change, and I've been working on it, but that will help is not loading my days up so much with so many tasks, and just being a little more realistic about what I can accomplish in a day and a week. Um, I think that will help me to avoid burnout, um, and also focus on the things that really matter instead of like I'm a big learner, so like taking in every possible learning activity instead of just like no, let's focus on these few things that will help me expand and are really growth oriented.
How would it help you go bigger? Or how would, if you're crafting your own how to
Mhm.
go bigger, um, what would that look like? How would you approach going bigger?
Yeah, I think just like one of those things I said, which is like really prioritizing the actions that are are bigger. Um, like marketing myself as an actor and my business. I learned a lot this past, actually last night, staying up too late about how to create, like how to grow my list more. And I think like that's one of the steps that I really need to take to get my message out to a larger audience. And so like actual action that grows my list, rather than just like, oh well, a post here, a post there.
Yeah.
So just really focused action that is intentional, I think, rather than feeling like I have to do all of the actions. Instead, do the really focused, intentional ones that then can help me expand. I think that's part of it. And I do think that involves like some letting go of like some minutia.
Absolutely. Um, and you already know how to do that, right? You said you in the experience that you had where you did suffer from burnout, you learned you had to say no more to things that wouldn't work, say yes to things that were right for you. And then you're speaking to boundaries, even some daily disciplines, right? Is what I call them for how you craft your experience, and being really gangster about saying no. You also mentioned being an obliger. So I imagine that those two things kind of rub together, obliger and wanting to do all the things. Um, what would be a bold action for you in service of what you really want?
Yeah, I get kind of like this is another component is like for some reason I get kind of stuck here as to like what would a bold action be that's bigger than what I'm already doing? Like I've gotten better about posting like my work as an actor online, marketing myself, talking more about what the joyful actor is and what I do. So I'm like, then what's next? So I guess, well, something might be, reaching out to some podcasts. This has been on like my list of things to do, and I've hesitated to do it. I think because I'm scared of like some already established audiences that I could maybe benefit as well, and then spread the word about what I'm doing. Another bold action would be reaching out to colleges because when I speak, people tend to be really attracted to my work um, because yeah, I mean, that's where I get to like showcase my personality and like, um, I'm a very relationship heavy person. So finding more ways to like speak in front of people. Um, but for some reason, like I don't like it when I'm like going live on Instagram or Facebook. Like that feels different to me than like what we're doing now or speaking at like um, in front of an audience or something, or just because I can like see the people maybe as part of it. I don't know. But anyway, those are some ideas. And then as far as like my acting career goes, I want to, right now I'm taking a bold action of like creating my animation demo reel, which is exciting. And then the next bold action I want to take is to send that out to production companies and um, casting directors, etc. Um, Another bold action I'm considering in my acting career is figuring out if it's the time for me to get a manager and making some of those reach outs because I feel I have some great representation of agents, but I don't know. I feel like maybe it might be time for another person on my team to help me get some bigger opportunities.
Okay. What has stopped you up until this moment from taking some of these bold actions?
The like podcasts and speaking things, I mean, I've prioritized other things, I guess. And I think also I'm like, well, I'm I'm still small. Like, why would they, want to hear from me? And so I've got to figure out a way to like not think of myself that way. um, yeah, I don't know.
Still small. Tell me what that means. I'm still small.
There's definitely a block with like not having book TV work yet. Even though I've done like a ton of commercials and industrials and independent films and um, tons of theater, um, there's and voiceover. See, there's a lot, but it doesn't matter, right? When our brains are like they have a block. So I think there's that block of like, well, you haven't booked a TV role yet. Like, why should anybody listen to you?
Hmm. That's interesting, but not uncommon. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, you feel that you need to have booked a TV role in order to make a bigger ask?
I think so. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, you just phrased it so so nicely. um,
Why does the TV role matter so much?
because I really want it,
Hmm. Okay.
which is interesting because you know I have a lot of bookings and work and experiences that a lot of other people would dream of having. Um, but I don't have this one. That's my next one. And I know that as soon as I get that next one, it'll be now you need a guest star. Now you need reoccurring, right? So I know that it's that game because I remember 2 years ago being like, oh, but you don't have a commercial. And I'm like, okay, well now I do. But now I want this other thing.
Hmm. Hmm. So
So
let's notice that, right?
yeah.
Um, what I'm hearing you say is part of what could be blocking you, standing in your way, is the external metrics
Hmm. Hmm.
for what is an internal action.
Hmm.
Fair to say?
Yeah.
So let's disconnect those two things. The external metrics have nothing to do with your bold action because the bold action comes from here.
Hmm.
The external metric will be the external effect will be a consequence of the internal action that happens. And those two things are not, they do not have to be linked in terms of the external metric has to be in place before the internal metric takes place in order to produce the next external metric. Right?
Right.
There does not have to be a dependency. But I'm hearing that there's a belief that you need this in order to create that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right.
We're talking about, it's curious that you use the word small too, because you said I'm still small. And there's a sense here in our conversation, even now, you're talking about going bigger, and yet there's a sense of playing small.
Yeah.
So I think your word is interesting. What what would it look like if you took up space right now, based on what you have, your experience, everything you bring to the table right this moment? What would you do, or what would it look like if you decided to take up space?
I think just like unabashedly talking about who I am and my work, which, like I said, like I say that I'm doing, but I think there's further to go. Um, I think just like an inner knowing that I have something to offer, um, an inner knowing of value, you know, um, and like showing up in that value every time I show up, whether it's an audition, whether it's speaking, whether it's to my students, um, owning all the expansive knowledge I have, about this industry, about even mindset work, about um, making people laugh, about creating material, about auditioning, like all these things. There's a ton of knowledge there. And um, yeah, just knowing that value.
What I've noticed, Allison, is that we tend to have two voices.
Mhm.
We have the voice that we speak to other people with, in terms of the latitude and the endurance and the well wishes, the pleasantness we give to other people, and then the voice we use for ourselves.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if that's at play here. If you were, let's say you were you and you are looking at your someone else is saying all the things you're saying out loud. What would you say to her?
Wait, hold on. They're saying, what are they saying?
Let's imagine we split you
Okay.
and the you of the future, who's already done all these great things,
Mhm.
is speaking to you now.
Mm. Mhm. I think they would say like, "Hey, don't like don't be so afraid to put yourself out there. Um yeah, not everybody's going to like it. Like people are going to always have their opinions, but like you have some fun stuff ahead of you. Um and it's worth it to like claim that. They would also be like, Allison, like, you're such a goofball. You bring so much joy to people. Like, that is a gift. Like, come on. Like, don't be afraid to, like, sing that to the rooftops, you know? Um, and like, yeah, you're going to get better at on camera acting. Like, you're going to get better at voiceover. There's always going to be growth. But like, that knowledge of like the growth always being there isn't a reason to like wait, I guess.
And notice your posture when you did that. Wait,
Yeah.
right? That ain't that constracting.
I liked that.
Contracting in restricting, right? The restrictive piece of going small. There's a huge opportunity for you to come outside of the safe zone
Yeah.
right now. And intellectually, you understand, but it feels like emotionally, energetically, the inner knowing is not there on those levels.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that, my voice, my inner knowing was like, you've already like stepped a bit out of the safe zone. Like, well, you've already like taken some steps out, so like, why would you like?
Hmm.
It's like it's like the part of my brain that's just like, we've done enough. Like, don't push me more. Come on, you know. There's been a ton of growth this year. I felt it. Like before this year, my business wasn't even public. Like before this year, I didn't talk about it at all, you know? So there's, I think that inner voice is like, can't this be enough? I'm tired. And it's like, no. So
That brings up into something curious for me. Have you taken a moment to celebrate the growth this year?
not really.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I just booked a trip, uh, like driving distance for my partner and I for New Year's. And that was a big thing because um, I wanted like something that's gonna be about celebrating this year. And so I think that will help me do that.
Good.
Um, yeah, you're right. I really haven't.
It may be, I don't know, but it may be that the voice is inviting you to take a break, and the voice deserves that to be honored.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it wants like to honor the growth so far before it's ready to like, okay, what's next? You know? um, how do you think like how do I do that?
Hmm. Which part? What is that?
How do I honor what I've done so far?
Hmm. It's a really impactful question,
Yeah.
and you have the answer.
Do I?
You do.
um I think like I think it is going to mean like actually stepping away from the work for those 4 days. And I think it may even mean like emailing my agents and being like, hey, unless like a national commercial or like a TV audition comes up, like I just will be out, like I'll be out for these 4 days, you know, because I'm just taking this time to like celebrate the year and especially as an actor, like, and I think it's true for a lot of us now, like it's so hard to disconnect from the work. But I feel that I want just a little bit of that disconnection, that break, that celebration time that's just about celebrating and not also like, well, something could come in and then I'd be taken away to go do that, you know.
What would it take for you to respect that boundary? Create and respect that boundary.
Well, I booked the trip, so that's a start. Um, it's hard because like a part of me is like, well, don't bring your equipment to tape with you. But then I'm like, as soon as I don't bring like a microphone and a ring light, like I feel like that will be when the TV audition like shows up. Um, and I don't want to be like in panic mode if it does,
Why would you panic?
because I wouldn't have my tools to like do the work. If it was like a, you know, an industrial or commercial audition, I would just say, hey, sorry, I'm on vacation, you know, like I let them know. But if it was, like I said, one of those two things that would go beyond my boundary, so maybe the answer is just like bring the stuff, but know that the boundary is I'm not using the stuff unless it's one of those two things. um,
Okay, let's play out the scenario. Let's say that happens. Let's say you go on vacation and the big thing that's beyond your boundary comes in, and you've got your stuff. You've also got your partner.
mhm.
In order to, what do you have to give up in order to create the TV audition on vacation? What would you be giving up?
I'd be giving up um, like the time and energy that I'd otherwise be putting towards like reflecting or celebrating with my partner.
And what would you be gaining?
A potential opportunity.
Potential.
Yeah.
Hmm. Is that, is it worth the trade?
It's not unless it's one of those two things to me. Like that's my actual truth. Like if it was if it was a TV audition, it would be worth it to me. But if I did it for like a commercial voiceover audition, I'd be like, I wouldn't be happy with myself. So, so yeah, that I think is where I'm at.
Okay. You would also be giving up some the time to honor your boundaries, right? So I bring it up to say, notice what would take you off of your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hearing you be really clear, like, no, if it's these two things, I'm willing to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're sacrificing is the boundary that you created.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do.
And the trade-off is yours to make.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to influence you one way or another, or any, no judgment in that. The trade-off is yours to make. And there's some there's an opportunity to for you to trust your inner authority.
Mm-hmm.
That if you get an opportunity to do the two things, you get one, you can get more. And your inner authority is calling for rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I think I think what it comes down to is like I do want to respect that boundary, but I do still want it to feel like a choice, not something I'm like forcing on myself, you know? And I think by like not bringing my two pieces of equipment with, I'd feel like I was forcing that on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I can feel that I can feel that I'm ready for like a boundary. but I don't know that I don't want to feel trapped, I guess. I still want it to be in that moment that I get to decide, and not that like a prior version of myself like forced my hand. Does that make sense?
Doesn't have to make sense.
I know, but
But yes. So let's notice that. That could be part of your survival mechanism. You don't want to feel forced into any decision, so you keep your options open
yeah.
until the last moment. Could be, right? Something for you to confirm or deny, right? But you mentioned being an obliger, right? That's part of your personality, and so sometimes overflowing those boundaries, when we create boundaries that we are willing to cross for specific situations, sometimes that is our survival mechanism pulling us back. Hey,
Mhm.
yeah, but I feel safer if
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
more right if I did this other thing. So I call that out to say that's something to notice. Is that your survival mechanism? And if so, where else does it show up?
Mhm.
To bring you in or to push you over the boundary. Make sense?
Mhm.
The sense is the survival mechanism is born very early in our. We make decisions, things happen, we make decisions. Just like you had a situation and your survival mechanism came in, you're very smart and intelligent, multi-talented, and then you made some decisions about, hey, this is how I'm going to show up for the future. That's survival mechanism. And the ways that we get tripped up sometimes are survival. We have anytime we're experiencing dissonance, we're experiencing we want one thing but we're feeling kind of stuck, or we want one thing but we keep coming back. That speaks to typically a survival mechanism.
Mhm.
It's a set of a way of showing up that we developed in the past that may or may not still be in service to who we are today,
Right. Right.
right? And so the thing is not to try to kill survival mechanism. I don't want you anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. That's not the way to approach it. Survival mechanism is like your shadow. You will never. The only way to get rid of your shadow is to go inside, avoid the sun, in a way play small, or notice it. Hey, survival mechanism, I see you, and I'm choosing to play differently here. Make it conscious
Mhm.
and choosing from the conscious aware place. How am I showing up? Is it autopilot survival mechanism or something else?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's another survival mechanism that's in there about, you know, in the past having like, missed an opportunity because I wasn't prepared for the possibility.
That
So,
actually happened an experience.
um, it was more like I can't like think of a specific time with equipment necessarily, but like I had an audition and made a decision that I was going to say I wasn't available on a certain date. Um, it's always tough because it's like as an actor, like you have to have other work. So, and I made a call of like, okay, well, I'm going to say I'm not available, and then I always like beat myself up about that opportunity because if I would have just like opened myself up to like the idea that I might have to ask my employer for that date off or whatever, then I think that I might have been considered more for that. Of course, I don't know. Um, but I think this idea of like always being prepared, always being available, never being not available has like stuck with me. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
and yeah, it's like very ingrained in us too, as actors, like to always be available. Yeah.
Sure. And and so let's notice that nothing is 100% available all the time.
Yeah.
You are a renewable energy source and you must renew yourself. And you've already seen that when you don't do that, undesirable things happen.
Hmm.
Intellectually, you know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You know you have to sleep, you know you have to eat, you know you have to renew your energy, right? Exercise. And yet, intellectually, we can know it, but energetically, we feel we need to always be on. Well, that's contrary to what it is to be human. The ocean has cycles, the moon has cycles, the earth has cycles, the body has cycles. So turning off is or powering down is a very important renewal process. And if there's something that keeps you from feeling like it's okay to do that, that's something to notice.
Yeah.
You know? There's also a point of trust. Can you trust that you're right on time? Can you trust that your journey to this point has been to bring you here?
Yeah. I mean, I think I trust that I my journey to this point is to bring me here. I do feel that like I look back on the things that have happened to me and I trust that like there's meaning in that. Um, if only because I need there to be meaning. Um, but yeah, I think it's a big leap in this like hour session for me to fully trust that I'm right on time.
Sure. And I don't expect that you're going to be like, oh, that's radical. Yes, I trust myself, right? Like if it were that simple, you'd have done it already.
Yeah.
You already know what you need to do, right? It was based on what you told me. There's also a place to play here that you, because trust and courage are decisions. We think of them as reactions, but that's not true. Trust and courage are decisions. So, in the courageous place that you're going forward to, the bold action, there can also be, you can also choose trust that whatever happens next will be perfect because it will be to bring you to the next place. And the timing is always going to be right. Something easier to say than to embody, but that's why I bring it up.
Yeah.
Something to focus on. Can I trust that if I went on vacation and I didn't have my equipment, I wouldn't be trapped? I would be honoring, and that
Mhm.
would be okay.
Mhm.
There'll be another opportunity then down the road that will be perfect and right on time and timed for what inner authority really needs. When
Yeah.
inner authority is ready and I've had the proper rest and whatever else, there'll be alignment
Mhm.
at the next stop, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Any thoughts?
I've spent so long people pleasing and like I've come a long way since that sophomore college student. Um, but I still think there is some residual like lack of trust in myself to know like what is aligned, you know, until I'm like in it. When I'm in it, like I feel it. And I'm like, this is aligned. This is great. But like, for example, right now I'm thinking like, I'm still thinking about the equipment thing. And because it is obviously a big thing for me. And I'm like, well, which do I trust? Do I do? Because part of me is like, well, April says you shouldn't, so you should do what April says. And that's like a people pleasing tendency, right? Um, and then there's like the part of me that like wants to honor the boundary, but then also the part of me that's like, give yourself like that choice. And is that like the fear part, or is that the what I want, you know?
So to be clear, I'm not saying what you should do.
I know.
I am, my goal here is to open up the possibility for more choice than I bring it or I don't bring it. That's a yes or no. Those are closed, right? And really, it's not even about the equipment. It's about I'm available or I'm not available,
Right.
regardless of whether the equipment is present. Are
Yes.
you available or not?
Right. Exactly.
And I guess what I heard implied is you're not available unless these two opportunities come, in which case the door's open, and that is entirely your choice. No judgment, just to be clear. And I think it's right on, right in alignment with what you said. As a people pleaser, as an obliger, like April said, right? So let's just notice that too, right? Um, cool. But Allison, what do you really want?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I want is like what I've kind of
Yeah,
said so far.
yeah. Okay, okay. Any other thoughts coming up for you, or anything coming up for you?
Um, I think there's like, what I'm realizing is like, I often actually really do know what I want,
Mm,
and I get aggressively protective of it when I perceive anybody to be like questioning it. I'm noticing.
mm,
Um, so that's interesting to me. And so I think like, if I can have more trust in that, in myself, to say like, yeah, this is what I want, and like that's okay. Um, rather than like wanting an outside validation on what I want. That I think will help. That would maybe make me less aggressively reactive when anybody, you know, has a different idea in mind, because then I can just be like, that's okay. Like, this is what I want. That's, I trust that, you know?
well, I think that's an important thing to notice, that you feel aggressively protective, and um, that speaks to inner authority. The woman I heard, when I asked you, I said, well, what would it look like for you to create these boundaries? You had this experience, you made some decisions. What would it look like? You were very clear. Yes, so I'm gonna need to exercise. I'm gonna need to go to bed at a certain time. I'm gonna need to. You were very clear. There was no hesitation. There was no like. There was definitely no obliging. 100% clear. So the
Yeah.
inner authority does know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
the idea is that we sometimes think the answer is out here somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but because we have the question, we also have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
If we're courageous enough to respect and obey inner authority. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I want to be more courageous with that, you know. Making the decision to book this trip was a courageous respect of that. Um, Many of the things I've done that have been uncomfortable, but I heard speaking to me to do this year, like starting up this demo, like finally launching my business, like investing in We Should All Be Millionaires, were all that inner authority, and just listening to it. So I want, and that has made a huge difference in my life already. So I want to listen more.
Do you journal?
Yeah, I do gratitudes in the morning.
Okay.
And then I do thought work. So like circumstance, thought, feeling, action, results, that model,
Okay.
um, daily.
Okay. I see a powerful place for you to play moving forward with reference to coming back to our question, what is it going to take for you to play in this new space, and is there anything blocking you?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say based on our conversation? What do you think is blocking you?
I think what's blocking me is thinking the answer is outside of me. You kind of put that really nicely and it resonated. And like, as I've realized, even as I like got at it with you about how I wanted to make a decision, and realizing how I defend those things when I really do actually know, but want some outside answer to say that it's right. Um, so I think what's getting in the way is the looking for the outside answer to say that it's right, instead of just being with that and like trusting that because it's there rather than because of anything else.
Does that feel true and complete?
Yeah, I want to believe that it's enough that I know when I know. And sometimes I need to journal or, you know, actually just be with my body most of the time. And that's part of the reason for the exercise, is because when I'm with my body and when I'm in my body, the knowing is much clearer than when I start to, get a tasting menu of everybody else's thoughts.
I love it. She had the sound effects too. I love it. Now, I honor your truth. And I'm really glad that you are able to, I sense that you had a sense in your body, like when you are speaking from inner authority, and then when you're waiting for other people to
Yeah.
corroborate that or collaborate on, to co-sign on that inner authority. And I'm really glad to hear you say you can feel that in your body, because it is a reaction. The body doesn't lie, and it listens to inner authority. I think that feels like the place to leave you for today, and to invite you to play in owning inner authority without external co-signing, if you will. Feel that in your body, know it, own it, and let it be. Does that feel like a good place?
I'm looking forward to listening for that
Yeah.
and letting it be.
Yeah. My sense from this conversation is that it's always there, and it's always laser clear for you. If you can let it be.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When you said that, I laughed because I very much resonate with that. It's the letting it be that starts to get in the way, like we talked about. But it is all it's there.
I felt that. And to be fair, also to say I didn't feel aggression toward me at
Oh,
all.
good.
So if you were feeling that, that's great. Seriously, that's great, because you're feeling it and you got a chance to really know what that looks like for you, feels like for you, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. So I help people develop a compass question. I call it a compass question because we want to have all the answers. We want to have a definitive roadmap. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these steps and blah, 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 blah. But life doesn't work like that. Things never line up just the way we expect from 30,000 feet. But a compass question can allow us to say, in a moment, make right angle turns based on where we really want to go and what's aligned with us. It comes from a place, I think it was a British rowing team, and they wanted to win a gold medal. Been a decade, in 2000, they had never won a gold medal. And what they decided to do is they developed a question. And the question was for them: will this make the boat go faster? So, are we partying tonight? Will this make the boat go faster? Are we eating pizza? Will
Mm,
this make the boat go faster?
yeah.
Are we training today?
Yeah.
Will this make the boat go faster? Right? And it sounds like there's a compass question here for you.
Hmm.
It might be, can you let it be? Or something
Yeah.
around letting inner authority stand.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm trying to like find the words for it because there is something about the can you let it be, but for some reason that phrase doesn't like quite. It seems like an admonishment more than like a actual question to ask myself,
Okay,
and that's just my perception. So I'm trying to think of a way that I could ask that
sure,
um, that's useful rather than just puts me into like shamed puppy mode.
sure.
Um, yeah, can yeah, I might have to think on it.
Yeah, I invite you to
Mhm.
think on your compass question. And if you're open to it, we'll stay connected. I'd love to hear what you come up with.
Yeah.
Let inner authority nosh on it and come up with something that will guide you. Yeah. But does it make sense then what you're looking for in terms of a compass question, what the overall objective is? Does that make sense the way I explained it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like when I think about it in terms of my purpose, I think like, will this bring more joy? Is what comes up first. Um, and that might be it. And I do think joy is very linked to my inner authority. So,
That makes sense? You said that was the first thing you said, and you said, I said, what feeling do you want to evoke when you've arrived? And you said, spreading joy. Yeah. So, Allison, you do know.
yeah, you're right.
You do know. Everything you need, you do know. Can you let it be?
I like, can I know that I know?
Hmm. Okay. Why don't you, does that feel true and complete? Or still some more digesting to do?
No, that feels true and complete.
Okay. Exciting.
Okay, thank you.
Tell me what this feels like the right place to leave you for today.
Yeah.
Anything outstanding? Anything we missed?
So,
Tell me your biggest takeaway from today.
um, it's that my inner voice is much louder and clearer than I had realized.
Beautiful. Thank
And
you,
that
Alex.
is a comfort.
Tell me why. Why is it a comfort?
Because then I know what to listen for. And there were a few moments today where it was just very clear and knowing what to listen for is, I think, a lot of the battle. Then it doesn't have to be about all this. And there's much less to sift through. Input is one of my Clifton strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a lot of sense that I'm like, oh, let me see all the input of all of the external things. But this is knowing that I have a clear knowing allows me to trust it more. So
Beautiful. It's my pleasure to serve you, and
thank
thank
you
you.
so much.